Well, good morning. And I must say I'm very honored to be here this morning to take part in this celebration of Ken's legacy. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time this morning and share some moments to remember. Now, I'm not sure if my presentation is going to be more like Oscar's or like Tyler's. We'll see how it plays out today. I do want to say I've known Ken, I believe, for a little over 30 years. We met for the first time at ACI up in Minneapolis. I believe it was around 1993. Like Bill alluded to, I used to wear a uniform. The most recent one I wear was a bright blue pants with a really cool yellow racing stripe up the side. I was easy to cite at the conventions. And anyway, when Ken saw me in uniform, you know, Ken spent some time in the Army as well. I think you spent, 5 years or so? And so there was an instant bond between us, being a couple of Army guys. So I've known Ken for a long time, and we've had a number of interactions on 318 committee. Most recently, Ken sent Bo Ryder. Bo, would you raise your hand? Bo was one of Ken's undergraduates up at Cornell, and we're blessed to have Bo down at Georgia Tech now. Now, being that I am an educator, I've been doing this for a few years. We need to start off with some lesson objectives this morning. So, and I would note, let's see how this works. There we go. So these are all Bloom's taxonomy verbs, just to make sure that I am technically correct here. We don't go very far up the Bloom scale. I think I might get to level 2, so don't expect anything very technically impressive here this morning. But the effective use of PowerPoint slides in communicating with students, we'll get to that. Facial expressions in conveying one's true inner feelings. I don't normally talk about feelings, but today I just got to talk about these feelings. All right, but the third one here, avoid being asked to leave the convention. That's probably the most important lesson objective that we have to achieve here this morning. Just so you know, I did seek PDH credits from the ACI staff, but they got to slide number 2 and they said, nah, it ain't going to happen. So, being a former brigadier general and all that in the Army, I did put a disclaimer here. I do want to note these things. Some parts of this presentation may be more accurate than others. And where's Mike? Mike said, "Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story." The stories are true to the best of my limited memory. And at my advanced age now, that memory isn't quite as good as it once was, but I think that will help embellish the story just a little bit this morning. And then I do want to also note, no lawyers were endangered in the creation of this presentation. All right, so let's get started. Now, Ken, if you're expecting something very inspirational, lots of quotes and all that, sorry, not going to happen this morning. This is going to be a little different. So, let's talk about PowerPoint. Now, I have never been a huge believer in PowerPoint slides. One of the big questions is, how many slides should you have in a presentation? So in seeking information for today, I went out to the font of all knowledge. I went out to the internet, and I found some rules. So the 5-5-5 rule, and I really like this one because that means you can put a presentation together with 5 cubed number of words, 125 words, and I like that because that makes for very, very quick presentations. But that rule there ends up in 5 slides. Then there's the 10-20-30 rule, and I did not make these rules up. These are actually out there on the internet, so you may quote me if you'd like on this. 10 slides in 20 minutes and 30 size font, so those who are a little visually challenged can see the slides. And then there's the engineer's rule. And bear with me just a little bit because this does have Greek letters. Now, I will note that when I was at West Point does not have fraternities or sororities. So I have always been challenged with getting my Greek letters right. Those who have had me in class, and there are a few in the room here, know that I don't always get these right the first time, and I have to seek guidance from the audience. All right, so the engineer's rule. If you are given 18 minutes for a presentation, I'm not sure what my time is here today. I will try to be knowledgeable of that. We multiply that by lambda and beta and kappa, so the number of slides depends. All right, and so we've got some variables here for various aspects of the presentation. So if you're doing a real easy subject, lambda needs to be 1. You don't want to give yourself any more slides than you have to for people to ask you questions on. If it's, and you get up to a really difficult subject that you can't explain, make it 0.25. You really want to cut those slides back so nobody has a chance to sharpshoot you. And then and by the way, lambda is my very favorite Greek letter. Some in the audience here know why. Where's Terry Holland? Is Terry still here? He was here. All right. Well, lambda is one of my favorite Greek letters. I'll explain that offline. All right. So beta. If your group is wide awake, then use a 1/2 multiplier, because if they're wide awake, they're going to try to sharpshoot you, so you want to give them the least number of slides possible. Somewhat fatigued, the number increases. If they're sleepy, just present a bunch of slides. They're not going to remember them anyways. All right, then kappa. This is about the picture content. So I do have a few pictures in here this morning. No graphics, go a little bit shorter. If your slides are crowded with stuff, you don't need a whole lot of information to put out. Some graphics, it increases. If you have pictures, a lot of pictures, just use a lot of slides. More to follow on that here in just a second. Well, then we have the lawyer's rule. So we take the length in minutes multiplied by beta and multiply it by then sigma. It really doesn't matter. And then we get to the Hover rule, which is one of the great mysteries of ACI. All right, now, since I do have some data here, let's look at a little bit of a chart. So on the x-axis, we have the 5 different rules. On the y-axis, we have the number of slides. And so the 5-5-5 rule, that's easy to plot. The 10-20-30 rule, easy to plot. The engineer's rule, that ends up somewhere in there. But since it depends, we have to put a little bit of a variation in there. Now the lawyer, I had some fun with this one. So, are you going to win? Don't have a lot of slides then. But if you're going to lose, aim to confuse with more slides. But now let's get to Ken Hover. All right. So Ken starts off down here. Ken's like a little bit of rocket, and I am not making this up. Watch this. I had to go to some of my students to figure out how to do this animation this morning. I'm pretty proud of this, really. Watch where this rocket goes and watch what happens up here. This took a lot of effort. I never learned this in the Army. I once saw Ken, and let me show you. This was an ACI student luncheon somewhere in the 2010 decade. I don't remember where it was. I believe we shared the conference hall with, who is the cosmetic company? It's
Mary Kay.
Mary Kay. I believe we were sharing the convention center with Mary Kay. And that might have been the central focus of your presentation. But I saw Ken Hover do a presentation at a student luncheon where he went through 278 slides in the course of about a half an hour. Now, these little controls are pretty cool. The button, the advancer button on the control was glowing red by the time he was done with that presentation. But in all honesty, I was sitting there looking at these 278 slides, and it was very well done. I think you spoke in Spanish part of it too. So I didn't understand that part, but the pictures told the story. So this is the first of my experiences with Ken Hover, and I knew that I would have to try to copy that in class at some point down the road, but I've never come close to that at any point. Now the second case I want to talk about, and this is I think I've told some of the folks in the room about. So back in 2008, when I was assigned at West Point as the CE program director, we hosted the Northeastern Region Student Conference. And as part of that conference, and this is West Point, beautiful place there on the Hudson River. This was my building right here, Mahan Hall. Many thought it was going to fall into the river, but it never did. So these are some of the events that took place in the competition there. The Steel Bridge, I know many are familiar with this competition format, surveying, the meat ethics essay, mystery concept or contest, pull-ups. We added that one. Cadets like to do pull-ups. But the concrete canoe is the one I really want to focus on. And I see Ken covering his eyes. He knows where this is going. All right, so as the day played out, so there was a cadet, Costello, came up and said, "Hey, Colonel Meyer, you should challenge Cornell to a faculty race." I thought, that'd be a cool idea. So, Meyer, what a great idea. I know the Cornell faculty advisor, and I'd seen Ken wandering around the conference. Hey, Ken, let's have a faculty race at the end. It would be fun. To which Ken said, Fred, what a great idea. I can't wait. But let's talk about the concrete canoe race and Ken's face. So, you can tell a lot about what's going on inside a person's head by the look on their face. So when we look at this first one here, oh my God. What did I just agree to? This could end badly for the Cornell team. So this is back. I was a lot younger at that time, a lot better shape, and I think Ken realized he was going to have a good little competition on his hands. Well, Ken not wanting to let on what was going on, I can't let my students see me like this. I have to keep a straight face. It took a long time to find these pictures, by the way. And it gets better. If I just look the other way, maybe people won't notice the worry on my face. All right, so now let's take a slight break there for just a second, and let's go to this picture. Now, the young lady in the front of the canoe, Cadet Liz Costello, class of 2008, who was our concrete canoe team lead at that time, also the captain of the Army women's soccer team. Anybody who's ever played soccer knows that those kids out on that field are running around out there for about an hour straight. They are in phenomenal shape, and Liz was no exception. She was the powerhouse on that team there. I would point out a few problems with this picture, though. So this was the West Point canoe back in 2008. Now, we were more focused on putting the conference on that year, so some of our entries in the competitions were maybe a little bit below standard. The Army does a lot with duct tape. All right, if you can't fix it with duct tape or baling wire, it can't be fixed. Well, so anyway, in this case here, you can see there's a little bit of duct tape on this canoe, and it does run around the entire length of the canoe. I do believe at this point that was pretty much serving as the principal tension reinforcement in the canoe. And when you look, freeboard is defined as the amount of distance you have from the water level up to the top of the canoe. Our freeboard wasn't supposed to be, this is probably about 2 inches here at this point. It's supposed to be a little bit more than 2 inches, even with 4 people in the canoe. And so as you can imagine, things are probably not looking quite so good for the West Point Concrete Canoe team at this point. As a matter of fact, the next picture that I had in my camera, and it took a while to dig these pictures out of Grandma's attic after being in there for 16 years in 2008, that's what happened. So our canoe became the West Point submersible canoe. And I will say innovation at its finest. No one ever thought to make a submersible canoe. I don't remember what team, this might have been the Cornell team back here, I don't remember, but you can see they're ecstatic. They have just won the race by default, and the fire department was there to tow our canoe back to the shore. The only piece of the canoe I remember seeing by the time it actually got back to the shore was about the front 3 feet. The rest of it fell off. It's at the bottom of Long Pond at this point, and I think fish are enjoying it. All right, so anyway, let's go back to our pictures. And I want you to note the change in the expression on Ken Hover's face when that happened. Oh, what terrible luck for the West Point team. I hope the students are all safe. One more. Wow, I dodged a bullet on that one. Let's celebrate. And I see the atomic fireballs up there, and you can see Ken likes to throw candy in the air. But that was a good event for Ken. I was looking forward to the race, and I think we actually both were. But anyway, it never did happen. Your canoe survived, mine did not, and we never had a chance. Maybe we should do that one of these days, just to see how it would come out. My Georgia Tech canoe from over the weekend still is in one piece too, so I could use that one. All right, well, enough of this silliness at this point. I want to close on a very positive note. And when I found this picture, I thought this was so funny. My name is Ken. And what's actually below that picture on the name tag, I think you were at a celebration. You were trying to figure out when Ron Berg was going to retire. and you had something on there, you'd all estimated how many months until he would retire. Anyway, that's where that picture came from. But Ken, you are a great American, and I mean that in every sense of the definition. The number of lives you have impacted, the number of students you have educated and inspired, the contributions you have made to the practice of civil engineering in the concrete world can be touched by few, if any. And I want you to know how proud I am to have been a colleague of yours over the years, and I look forward to a long future ahead and hope we can keep in touch. But I do know that as you maybe try to unpeel a little bit, I know that fence in the backyard still needs to be fixed, at least according to what Deb told me. So Ken, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.